Mensch lebt nicht vom Brot allein. Und wir können uns keinen Wiederaufstieg des deutschen Volkes denken, wenn nicht widersteht auch die deutsche Kultur und vor allem die deutsche Kunst.
Der Expressionismus steht der Klassik, den die NS-Politik aufgriff, völlig entgegen. In Deutschland hat der Expressionismus seine ergreifendsten Formen in den Plastiken von Ernst Barlach, in den Bildern von Die Malerei des Nationalsozialismus wurde den Kunstvorstellungen des Führers voll und ganz angepasst, als eine Kunst, die an die Werke der Heimatmaler des 19. Jahrhunderts mit ihrem Naturalismus anknüpft. Die Kunst sollte lebensnah sein und auf natürliche Formen verweisen, um so die Beziehung zwischen Mensch und der übrigen Adolf Wissel zeigt eine bäuerliche Familie, bestehend aus Mutter, Großmutter, Vater, 2 Töchtern und einem Sohn, die gemeinsam im Freien vor einem weiten Feld an einem langen Tisch sitzen. Links außen sitzen die ältere Tochter und der Vater, dieser den Rest der Familie als Oberhaupt überragend. Rechts außen die Großmutter und in der Mitte als Lebensquell und Herz der Familie die Mutter.
Ein Haus der deutschen Kunst soll er stehen. Junge Deutschland baut seine Kunst sein eigen Haus.
Als richtungsweisend in der NS-Architektur gilt ohne Zweifel Paul Ludwig Trosts Haus der deutschen Kunst, heute Haus der Kunst, für das Karl Friedrich Schinkel Als Höhepunkt der Menschenbeeinflussung im NS-Staat galten die von Albert Speer erdachten Lichtinszenierungen der Reichsparteitage. 150 rund um das Zeppelinfeld angeordnete Flakscheinwerfer, im Durchmesser 2 Meter und im Abstand von nur 12 Metern aufgestellt, warfen ihre gebündelten Lichtstrahlen bis zu 16 Kilometer wie Pfeiler in den Himmel, um sich dort zu einem Die Plastik der NS-Zeit ist fast durchweg figürlich. Dabei spielt der vor allem männliche Akt eine überragende Rolle bei der Vermittlung der nationalsozialistischen Ideologie, da sich durch diesen ein überzeitlicher Wert überzeugend symbolisieren lässt. Es wird eine sehr deutliche Polarisierung der Geschlechterrollen deutlich. Kantig geformte Männerakte stehen weich modellierten, aufreizenden Frauen.
Der Mensch lebt nicht vom Brot allein. Und wir können uns keinen Wiederaufstieg des deutschen Volkes denken, wenn nicht widersteht auch die deutsche Kultur und vor allem die deutsche Kunst.
Even before the end of World War I, before the end of the Salon art favoured by Kaiser Wilhelm II, Germany already had a wealth of artistic styles. In 1910, Kandinsky had produced, in watercolour, the first purely abstract picture, and a year later, a group calling themselves Der Blaue Reiter, the Blue Rider, was founded by the painters Kandinsky, Franz Marc, Paul Klee, August Macke and Marianne von Werefkin. In 1912, Kandinsky published the essay on The Intellect in Art, in which he proposed that an idea may only be represented in a work of art by relinquishing superficial details and ignoring formal accuracy. This opinion was also supported by Franz Marc, who wanted to represent in his art the eternal paradigms of tastelessness and art off the rails. He demanded a healthy, natural art that was close to reality, such as that of Biedermeier and the Romantics of the 19th century. First among Hitler's favorite painters was the watercolor artist Rudolf von Alt, whom Hitler called his teacher, and whom he constantly tried to emulate in his own work. As Reichskanzler, he even had a state pension paid to von Alt's family. Other favorites included Heinrich Burgl, Karl Spitzweg, Anselm Feuerbach, Eduard von Grödner, Friedrich von Ammerling, Hans Mackert, August Pettenkofer, Albrecht Dürer, and many more. Moreover, he loved Cranach's portraits with his Renaissance images of the idealized woman, the French painters of the 18th century with their true-to-nature landscapes, and above all the Austrian and German painters.
Jede wahre Kunst muss ihren Werken den Stempel des Schönen aufprägen. Alles Gesunde, aber allein ist richtig und natürlich. Alles Richtige und Natürliche ist damit schön. Unseres nationalsozialistischen Kampfes eine große Entschlusskraft, ein tapferes Herz und ein andauernder Mut dazu, überhaupt wieder den Glauben an die ewigen volklichen Ideale zu vertreten, für diese zu werben und für sie zum offenen Einsatz aufzurufen.
When the Nazis seized power, any artistic undertaking that did not conform to the National Socialist ideal was abruptly stopped. Painters were given 4 years in which to adapt to the New German style. Under the direction of Propaganda Minister Joseph Goebbels, in 1933 the Reich's Chamber of Culture was founded, in which press, film, radio, theatre, music, literature and the fine arts were to be gathered under one professional roof. Conditions of membership were, among others, German nationality and Aryan ancestry. Jews, communists and other undesirable artists were labelled degenerate and driven from office, including Käthe Kollwitz, Ernst Barlach and many others. National Socialist artwork was adapted to the Führer's conception of it being connected to the naturalism of the regional painters of the 19th century. Its sole purpose to mirror the Nazi ideology whilst serving to secure the domination of the Nazi system. This art should be lifelike, refer to natural form, and express the relationship between man and the real world in a positive, life-affirming light. Hitler's art of health, simplicity, and the down-to-earth overshadowed everything sick, invalid, and weak, and in doing so removed itself from reality by its own over-idealism. The representation of community, the Führer principle, race theory, and later militarism were among the main themes of Nazi art. Once again, people became the center point of pictures as German man, as German wife and mother. The female representations reflect late bourgeois taste and reference Hans Mackart's salon style, 19th century naturalism, and the Renaissance. Production methods and mores were presented in order to distract from the increase in technology required for preparation for war. Men were represented in their professions as trained athletes. At work, a man has to stand tall. Substitute muscle power for machinery, the worker becomes the hero. As Mother Earth, she is the life source of the National Socialist people. Not for her any association with unbridled sexuality, for in the National Socialist state, being the mater familiae is her one and only duty. In front of the earth element sits the element water, slightly out of alignment, her eyes cast down, ready to serve Mother Earth from the bowl held in her hands. The external elements represent the masculine, dynamic elements. Fire on the left, as represented by the torch, and, on the right, spirit and intellect, as represented through the wind-blown hair. The floor tiles are also worthy of analysis. Although the pattern is continuous over all three panels, monumental proportions, hints of basilica, as well as other features of ancient Rome and Greek architecture were borrowed shamelessly. The concept of continuity of existence implied other meanings, such as people, organism, homeland, family, blood and earth, etc. That is, the emotional spectrum particularly relevant to the simple folk. As the model for this style was the classical architecture of Greece and Rome, there could be no criticism of its cultural heritage, and there was therefore confidence that a style had been found which anyone could understand, even though it was simplified, unadorned, and overdimensional. In citing antiquity, one could imagine a vision of globally historical importance, even if in many cases the look of a building gave no hint of its purpose. More important was its ability to underline a sense of eternity, and whilst inspiring confidence, at the same time overawing those both at home and abroad. In order to emphasize the 1,000-year Reich, this monumental style of architecture needed neither ornament nor decoration, but a plain, stony surface. Prominent, apparently solid building elements with infrequent deep window slits, pillars, often supporting nothing, columns and arcaded walkways were used repeatedly and monotonously in this stylized architecture, with the intention of impressing, but also overawing. It was classicism with its solidifying of form, its suppression of the inconsequential, and the generalization of the personal that seemed to offer the recipe for dragging the population out of its mood of crisis and artistic displacement. Strictly defined, serious and monumental, this was to be the style of the National Socialist state, the style of the purest German tectonic.
Ein Haus der deutschen Kunst soll er stehen. Junge Deutschland baut seiner Kunst sein eigen Haus.
Creating a grandiose, surreal and ghostly effect. Even visitors from abroad were overwhelmed by its orchestration. The British ambassador, Neville Henderson, described the Light Dome as a cathedral of ice, and many other foreign dignitaries, by their own admission, were temporarily converted to National Socialism. It also had its origins in the 1920s, and for which a complete redevelopment of Berlin would be necessary. According to Speer, a road access 38.7 kilometers long was envisaged, along the central part of which, 7 kilometers in length, the mightiest and most representative constructions of the German Empire should be built. At each end of the north-south axis, a railway station was envisaged, and at the point where the east-west axis crossed the north-south axis would be the Grand Square. Here, opposite a gigantic triumphal arch, would rise the Great Hall, a monstrous domed building which, along with the triumphal arch, Hitler had already made sketches of in 1925. This building should be the largest convention hall and biggest building in the world. Hitler's sketches were, however, altered by Albert Speer. The cube was appreciably lowered, but the cupola was enlarged by a factor of 3. On the corners of the building, Speer planned 4 towers. A gigantic square stone mass 74 meters high with sides 315 meters long, supporting a green copper dome which would tower like a mountain 230 meters above the city. In front of this light-colored granite cube would be a columned hall of 30 columns made of red or comradeship by Josef Thorak, presents 2 male nudes standing next to one another, legs slightly apart, facing outward and offering each other their right hand. The angular sculpted faces are sharp and appear determined, cold and expressionless. They display very little in the way of humanity, an impression which is only strengthened by the almost twin-like appearance. High, strong jutting cheekbones and the powerful, vital chin underline the inapproachability of these titans of racial husbandry. The only indication of an era is the short hairstyle, which is not difficult to place in the 1930s. The heads sit on over-proportioned muscular bodies, which, in comparison with Breker's smoothly polished sculptures, are more defined and in certain aspects clearer and therefore more realistically produced. Because of the bodybuilding style excess of muscle, the effect is lumpy, intimidating, and thereby less aesthetically pleasing. The rounded rib cages appear emphasized and the stomachs tight and sucked in. The long legs, especially in the calf region, appear somewhat too powerful in comparison to the upper body, although combined with the large feet, they provide an image of steadfastness. The position of the legs